Uh, Hello and welcome to an AMA session presented by Cloudways with Howard. My name is Danish. I am a community marketing manager and I will be the moderator for today's session. Howard is a WordPress performance expert who runs a development agency called Edge Grant Design. We are thrilled to have him here with us today to share his knowledge and expertise about WordPress. In this AMA, we will discuss performance, security, updates, and more. So, we have a few questions from our audience before we get started. Howard, please introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a bit about Edge Grant Design as well.
Sure. Oh, thanks for having me on. So H Grant Designs is a WordPress marketing company. We strive to fix any WordPress issues or any related hosting issues, any performance issues. We currently manage, I would say, 70 websites. We work with many IT companies to be their outsourced WordPress developers. We're working on, I think, around 20 websites right now, developing them. We have clients all over the world. So yeah, we're definitely excited to be here, or I'm excited to be here for that matter, and answer any questions anyone will have.
Great. So let's get started. Our audience has submitted some questions beforehand, and
Sure.
we will also take some live question during this session. So we are gonna start with a few questions. The format of this EMA session is that we make sure to take as many questions as we can because obviously we are time bound as well. And I know Howard has many other things to do in his life, so we make sure to take like around 10 to 12 questions on this session. So, starting off with the first question, Howard, that
Sure.
we receive from audience is how do we know what is causing our website to be slow?
Yeah, I mean, so there's definitely different things it could be, right? It could be your website host. It could be your images were never optimized. It could be a plugin that's just running consistently in the background. It could be ads. So there's definitely a multitude of different items that could be. One thing that we definitely suggest if your website is being slow, do a speed test with GT metrics, for example, which gives you a nice overflow of what is running on the background. It gives you a nice waterfall, so you can really kind of get into the nitty gritty of what's causing it. But yeah, I mean, there could be a multitude of issues, but the best part to see what's running it slow is definitely check GT metrics. If you have the ability to check like your server stats, so I know Cloudways definitely gives you the ability to check what's running on your server. Could be your servers being overloaded. Then you might need to upgrade it. So yeah, I mean, that's what you got to kind of go into. Could be the images, could be the plugins, could be the server. So you kind of want to get into the nitty gritty and see how you can improve on that.
And adding into this question, could you please suggest like some of the tools like we have GT metrics, like we have
Sure.
Pingdom speed test tool. Which one you prefer and you use to test the like speed of the website?
Yeah, I mean, we use Pingdom to test the speed from different areas of the world. We definitely use GT metrics. That those are usually the two. We also check, server load. We also use our colleagues as a good example to see, hey, is this site loading slow for you, or is this site loading? See what exactly it might be on our end. It might be our internet. Definitely, so those two tools are usually or those three, if you count colleagues tools. Um, but definitely those three. Definitely going through and seeing, hey, we're using Pingdom, we're using GT metrics, we're using our colleagues. Um, those are I feel are the best because it gives you the nice in depth conversation of what you can be doing, how you can improve it.
Great. Thanks for the answer. So, Howard, our next question is about the site order. So, do we need to follow any order while creating a site for better performance?
In terms of making sure a site works well with performance, there's normally not necessarily an order. We definitely suggest doing kind of the hard parts first, whether you're running it through you're doing like a member area and you got to have all these different integrations. We always suggest doing the harder things first, because if as you start building your site, you can see, hey, yeah, this is making the site slow. This is making it, so it's kind of you want to do the harder things that are going to have more server load. With integrations, you want to do those first so you can really see, hey, yeah, maybe this isn't working out with these integrations or the setup, or maybe we did a different server. So we definitely suggest doing the more intricate stuff first, so then you can really kind of see what's going to work and what isn't. And then as you kind of go down the workload, you can kind of go from the hardest to the easiest, or you can do the easiest to hardest. But again, it depends on what is going to be the heaviest load. If it's going to be something that is going to take 10 seconds to load, like you're doing some kind of integration with WooCommerce, is that going to have to go through a credit card processor? Then it's got to connect to something else. And it's got to connect to something else. So we really suggest doing the more intricate stuff first, seeing how your server will load, how the site will react. Then you kind of start going down a list.
And also adding into this question, like I saw in the community, like people are asking about, like I am doing like changes in the live environment, and I am not seeing these changes on the once I click on the preview button, or I can say once I publish the changes. So mostly the reason behind these issues are like cache issue. So people are using, like when they start working on the website, and they also install the cache plugin very early. So what would you say about that? Is it recommended to use the cache mechanism, or you can say cache plugin? We will also discuss the cache issue later in this discussion. And what would you suggest about the cache? Should we use it earlier, or after editing, finalizing the website?
I always suggest using it early on. I mean, we're actually going through a situation right now where, whenever we're making changes to a website, they can't see the changes unless unless we clear the server cache. I always am a component of putting it on earlier, just so you can always, whenever you're making a change, you can clear the server cache. So as soon as you start working on a site, I always suggest it, whether you're using Breeze from Cloudways or you're using another one of your choice. It really depends. I think putting it on to begin with is just a nice way to do it. Just so it's easy to see what exactly is happening with the site, how it's performing. So you can really kind of see what exactly is happening, because sometimes you might not need a cache plugin, sometimes you do. But it's always good to kind of squish those problems in the beginning. This way you can kind of see, okay, we need the caching plugin. They aren't seeing it, and from that matter.
All right. Moving on to something that is very much related to WordPress, and I am
Sure,
sure a lot of people are looking forward to hearing from you about the updates and the backups. So,
sure.
can you discuss what are the best ways to make sure my WordPress site is being updated and backed up?
Yeah, so I mean, we definitely suggest doing a daily backup. The rule is we do two backups a day. We have a third party vendor that we work with to back up our sites every single day. And we also use Cloudways as backup. So we're always a big component of backing up at least twice a day, just because unfortunately you never know what could happen, and more backups, the better. And in terms of updates, we are doing our updates I mean, we're backing up our website every day, like I said, but we found that doing consistent updates to plugins and everything isn't really necessary. We are doing them, don't get me wrong, but we're monitoring. If a plugin is vulnerable, then we'll patch it right away. We'll update. But if we see that, hey, plugin is update, we kind of monitor it, see what's going on. We look at the change logs, and then we kind of make a decision as a team and say, hey, we need to update them now, or can we wait like a week or so? We have seen that sometimes we update a plugin as soon as it gets released, and there's a bug, and it can cause issues. So we really kind of get into what is best for that site. If it's like a static site, nothing really changes, then maybe we might push it off a little bit. If it's a mission critical site where they're running, WooCommerce 1,500 orders a day, we might do it within a day. But we kind of have a schedule that we follow that has all of our management clients on a document, and we say, hey, this is kind of, we need to do this now on like a priority level. But again, you want to make sure that it's definitely backed up. Use a third-party vendor, use the Cloudways, do it manually. There are a ton of plugins out there that can help you with this. It's more of a preference. I mean, it's just like you ask someone, oh, I have an issue with my sink. You're going to get 10 different opinions. Obviously, we can provide our best practices, but again, it's an opinion thing. But we definitely suggest at least having two backups, because if Cloudways doesn't back up the website, or your other party doesn't back it up, at least you'll have some sort of backup somehow.
Great. Moving on to the next question that is related to HTTPS.
Mhm.
Can you discuss how important HTTPS is for secure
Sure,
website, and
sure.
why is its encryption important on websites that don't handle the sensitive information?
Sure. So HTTPS is obviously a big thing. If you don't have it, you go to a website that doesn't have it installed, you're going to get a nice error log or an error screen on the homepage that says the site's not encrypted. It might be stealing your data. And you got to kind of go through loops and hat ladders to get to that website. It could also scare people off. Say, hey, well, this website is giving this error. Is this a website I should be visiting? It also hurts you with rankings. Google definitely ranks websites that have the HTTPS higher than the ones that don't. You'll also see in the upper right left next to the URL that has a slash through it. It's definitely important just from a ranking standpoint, just from a security point. It gives that kind of validity to people who are looking at your website that you're up to date on the latest practices. Um, Encryption is important, especially with everything these days being hacked left and right. It just shows that you're up to date on your security practices, that you're running a best practice, you're running to know that you have it. Um, there's the encryption is important. There's really you want it no matter what. If it comes, Cloudways does offer the free SSL. It just helps to protect your website as well. It's definitely something that should be involved. And definitely we do suggest it. Yeah,
Thanks,
there is a
thanks for
question.
the.
Yeah, there is a question that just came in. I definitely want to kind of go through those. Someone just asked, what's the difference between a free SSL and a paid SSL? What's your recommendation? There's different levels of SSLs. It just depends on what level of encryption you do need.
Hmm.
Um, it also depends on what your clients. There's different levels, right? So free SSLs are good for those basic websites. If you're running kind of credit card systems or you're doing financial stuff or something else, you would have to talk to the vendor who is providing it. They might have certain requirements. The free SSL is good for a basic level, just basic security. A paid SSL, some hosts don't give you that free SSL, and that they make you pay for it. They don't include it. But again, that's also up to the vendor that you're using. It's also up to the client that you are building a website for. Depends on what level of encryption they really do need. That's what unfortunately it comes down to.
Great. So we are like taking questions on our comment section. So the people who are like attending our session, they can ask any question related to performance and WordPress. Howard is happy to help you around the performance issues. So Howard, so our next question is about like administrative privilege. So should we provide administrative privilege to every user or have restriction on it?
So it depends, right? So for instance, we have several clients who have full admin rights to their website, just because they are knowledgeable of the website. They are doing contact forms. They work with third-party vendors who have to install stuff, and we're not available at that time. So they have to have their vendors log in and install plugins, so forth. We usually don't recommend giving access to people who don't need it. If people are only going to be logging into do saying a blog post, or they're going to be logging into updating some content, we restrict it depending on who the client is. Just because we don't need someone logging in and deactivating, a theme or deactivating a plugin that makes the website run, right? Because then you have to kind of go through that rabbit hole saying, oh, well, what was deactivated? What did you do? So in our third party vendor, we actually do have activity logs. So we know what is being done on that website. So we can easily track it. But again, if you don't have that ability and you're not locking it down, well, then you're saying, oh, what did this person do? What did that person do? You're kind of going down that rabbit hole. But no, we definitely don't advise giving administrative privileges to every user. We suggest whoever is managing your website have full admin. But even then, you can fully restrict it if it's your website. You can give them, hey, we're only going to give you access to pages, posts, appearance. There are a lot of plugins out there that can work with you on this to make it keep really stripped down for a few clients. We have clients who only have ability to blog. But no, we definitely don't recommend giving it to everybody.
Great suggestion. Uh, Moving on to the next question, and the one in which I am really interested and wanted to hear your answer,
Oh boy.
is about web hosts.
Mhm.
So should we compare potential web hosts to find the right one, or
Yep.
just select anyone?
No, we definitely suggest excuse me, we definitely suggest comparing hosts to one another. If you have a certain budget in mind that you want to spend, if you have certain requirements that you need, no, we definitely suggest do your research, do your homework, ask your colleagues, ask, excuse me, in different community groups what other people are using, because you want to be set up for greatness. You don't want to get a host and put say 70 websites on there, and then a year later you're like, oh, I'm really not happy, I don't know what to do, and then you have to move all those 70 websites right now. So you want to do your website, you want to do your due diligence, compare what the name brands are. You have Cloudways, you have GoDaddy, you have Bluehost, you have Postgres. I mean, there's big players out there, don't get me wrong. But you definitely want to kind of compare apples to apples. Do a free trial if they give you that ability. See how easy it is to use. You kind of have to do a pro and cons list. What's the pro of one? What's the con of the other? And then make your decision from there. I know that before we started using Cloudways, we were all over the place, and we kind of did an apples to apples comparative. And we said, you know what? We really do think for our needs, Cloudways is the best way to go. We can easily scale up. It takes us 10 minutes to do a server. It takes us maybe an hour to clone a website over. I mean, you have the migration tool. So it's really getting into the deep diving of what do you need, right? What makes it good for you? Do we need the VPS? Do we just need a shared hosting plan? What is our budget? So there's a lot of intricacies that can go into it. We can definitely help. We've definitely helped other agencies come up with plans, what they need. So if anyone definitely wants to kind of reach out, we can definitely help. Say, hey, what's your requirements? But no, you definitely should compare. Do research on the company, and go from there. Absolutely.
Uh, if I add into this question, like if I ask you about about the web host, so what are the three things you must look in the web host, like before availing their service?
Yeah, I
Two
mean,
to three things.
two or three things too. I mean, in terms of like what you should be looking for.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you definitely want to look at support. I mean, support is key. Like that. I mean, you can do some research. We've been documented by Cloudways. We're on DigitalOcean quoted us. Support's key, right? So if their support is great and they're easy to handle, that kind of go above and beyond. Like their servers might not be the greatest, but if their support is great, that should kind of go above. So definitely their support level. Pricing is another one. How many websites you can host. There are some hosts out there that limit you to one or two plans or two sites. For instance, like, on one of our Cloudway servers, I think we have like 50 sites. There's no problem. We're on another provider, that might be an issue. So you definitely kind of want to look at those sort of things like pricing, support, pricing. I mean, I can go on and on, but I definitely think those three are kind of the big points. Absolutely.
Perfect. I got your answer. So another question that we have is about unauthorized access. So the question is,
Mhm.
how do I protect my WordPress website from unauthorized access?
So I mean, one things we definitely do recommend is changing WP admin, changing it to a different slug where you can do, when you do a WP, whatever your website is /WP admin, we definitely suggest changing that to something different. So it's harder for people to get access to 2FA logins. So then people, unless they're that user, they can't get in without approving it. Definitely think 2FA is huge important. Just because, like I said, mentioned before, because everything's being hacked left and right, unfortunately. So definitely 2FA, changing the slug on the back end, having that activity log. If you can restrict the back end to an IP address, I would definitely suggest that. However, there is some kind of issues with that. If you don't have a static IP and then your IP changes, you can have some conflict. But definitely having it locked down to only who has access has access. I mean, we definitely suggest don't just put passwords and usernames in an email. We definitely suggest doing it some kind of encrypted. There are some websites that you can send encrypted links, and those links expire. Anything to help protect the back end. I think. I mean, I don't know if the stat is there nowadays, but I think the stat was something a few years ago, like 90% of websites that were hacked they were logging with the username admin. So you definitely don't want a username of admin because that's one thing. I mean, when we're looking to migrate or onboard a client, we say, hey, what usernames do you have? And they say, oh yeah, we use admin. Well, you got to change that right away.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the things that we definitely do suggest is definitely change the admin username. Make sure you don't use that. Change the slug and then obviously 2FA.
Great point. I agree with you. And the next question we have is related to updates. Like how often should I be updating my WordPress website?
Again, I know we kind of touched on this before. It depends on what you need to do, right? So, for instance, we update like one of our largest clients. We update one of our clients every 2 weeks because they're a large e-commerce site, and they're a lot. So we do that every 2 weeks. If it's a site that doesn't, it's kind of like a static site. We monitor it. We might do it every 2 weeks. We might do it every three. It depends, right? I mean, there's no concrete answer. It's up to what your agreement is with your client. It depends on what you want to do. I mean, we're monitoring plugins, so if we can alert that a plugin is vulnerable, and there was an update for it, we'll do it right then and there. Because obviously it's vulnerable, they know about it. Hopefully they patched it, we fix it. Again, the other caveat to that is, well, if they update it, did they break something else? So you kind of just have to do your research, come up with your best practices, monitor, see what you want to come with. I mean, like I said, in terms of large WordPress updates, like, I know 6.2 just came out a few weeks ago. We usually will wait until, .1. So we'll wait until 6.2.1 comes out to do those updates just because we're not 100% certain. But if we do, we'll try like our in-house sites first, like our website and one of our partners. If that website seems to be okay, then we'll start doing it slowly, but we won't do a batch. We'll do one by one, make sure everything's working properly. And if we have to roll it back, we will. But again, it's your own best practices. We can make recommendations. Like I said, we have a huge document that we kind of follow for an update. But if there is vulnerable plugins, we'll do them right away.
Adding to this question, like Howard, what are the prerequisites before the update? Like what we should take care of before updating the plugins, or you can say the version of the WordPress.
I mean, we definitely do recommend doing backups, right? Backups, definitely do those backups every day, twice a day, 3 times a day, however you feel it. And just kind of keep an eye on it, right? I mean, we do backup for an agency we do work with. We back up our websites before we do an update, right? So we're doing it, and then we kind of go through, update the plugins first, make sure the site's looking good. Once we know that, then we'll update the theme. Once we know the theme is good, then we'll update WordPress. So we kind of do plugins, themes, WordPress. Because if you're just doing WordPress right away, well, then your whole site can break because the theme might be so outdated or the plugin could be so outdated that it's not compatible with that version. So we're kind of doing plugins, themes, and WordPress.
That totally makes sense. So the next question we have is related to site owners who create like their sites. So should
Mhm.
I work with an external WordPress developers to help with my website?
Again, that's up to you. I mean, if it depends if you're very knowledgeable with WordPress, then you don't need to. If you're kind of like a moderate user, you're learning it, then I actually, I recommend it. We have clients who we've built their websites for. We've trained them how to make their updates, what they need to do, and then they take it from there. Sometimes they will just say, you know what, we don't understand, we don't want to learn it. We're just going to have you take care of everything. We'll pay you monthly, or we'll pay you hourly, whatever it is to make these changes. So again, it really depends on your comfort, how comfortable you are with the person. If you want them to do it for you, if you want to work hands in hand. There are some companies or developers out there who only work, on a monthly basis. There are some that won't do it. It's your, what's the word I'm looking for? It's your choice, essentially, right? So you don't have to, you can. You can make changes, and you can have someone else. You can get tutored on it. You can work hand in hand. It's a preference, honestly.
All right. So the next question we have is um, like how should I learn WordPress? Is there any specific anything specific I should know? Because we have an audience that is like they are looking for the career in the WordPress and they are looking for the WordPress market. So do you share some suggestions that how they can learn WordPress? Any specific
Yeah,
thing?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, there's so many resources out there. I mean, there's a ton of WordPress groups on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I mean, there's some on Slack, YouTube. So definitely, I think that's the best way. I mean, I learned. I mean, we've been working with WordPress now for 8 years. We learned by just working with it, right? We watched YouTube videos back then, but we learned by just doing. I mean, we kind of sat together and we are like, all right, let's see what we can do here. And we learned it just by doing. But definitely reading on, I don't know if there's any tutorials and books or anything, but definitely YouTube videos so you can watch it and do it at the same time. There's tons of Facebook groups. There's tons of communities. There's local groups that are great. For instance, I'm part of WordPress Montclair. We actually have our WordCamp coming up in June, so if you're in our area, definitely love to see you. So we have a help desk once a month that we basically people come and they'll come, we'll ask questions, we'll help as much as we can. We definitely have our own Slack group where people will ask questions. So it's just getting involved, being a part of the community, learning what you need to learn, and go from there.
All right. So we got a question from the comment section as well, and we
Sure.
also have a question from our users that is related to like page builders. So what builder should I use to help with my WordPress website? Is there anything I should stay away from while building? And the same question in the comment section, like from Anastasios, he's asking what are some common performance issues that you are dealing with the WordPress sites using Elementor, so we can get answer of
Sure.
those both questions.
Yeah, I mean, so again, preference, right? I mean, we work primarily with Beaver Builder, but we also know Elementor, we know WP Bakery. It's a preference, right? I mean, it's what you want to use. I mean, we've gone through them all. We just feel that working with Beaver Builder is great. I mean, comes from so I mean, it's a preference. I mean, to answer his question though, I mean, we definitely have an issue with an agency we've been working with that we tried updating a contact form and it was showing a 403 error when we're trying to save the contact form. I mean, so that's an issue. That's a server related problem. Another form was working fine. So I don't really see. I mean, from like I said, we don't have a lot of experience with Elementor. But again, I don't think it's necessarily Elementor that is having the issue. I think it's more optimizing. If you're just uploading images, if you're uploading this and they're not compressed or they're not optimized, that's where you're going to be really seeing those issues. But that can be for any page builder. I mean, some page builders have more in the back end of their code than others, so it's a preference. I can't really suggest using one or the other. It's what you want to use. It's what you're comfortable with. That's like I said, we use Beaver Builder mainly. Some people we know will use Elementor mainly. Some people use Divi. It's more of a preference, honestly.
Great. Moving on to our next question. So the question is, I am currently using a web host and I feel like the site is slow. How can I get my website on another server so I can test the speed without my website going down?
Yeah, so this kind of relates to what I was saying before when you're doing your apples to apples comparison. If they offer a free trial, I definitely like putting sites on dev servers. For instance, when you have a website on Cloudways, we definitely have the WordPress.Cloudways apps and then the random numbers that come up. So we're working on a project right now where we're making sure all of our websites or their websites are updated, all the plugins, all the themes. They kind of neglected it for a little while. So we just really migrated. We basically put the Cloudways migrator plugin on there. We cloned it from their live site to the dev site. And we're basically, updating everything, sending, hey, here guys, here's the development link, compare it, see what's live, what's different, go from there. So definitely you want to have a server or a company that can give you that dev site. You can definitely put your website on like a staging site where it's test.test.com instead of test.com. So definitely you want to be able to clone that to a different server and then test it. You can do a speed test comparatives. We actually did a case study a year ago, maybe 2 years at this point. Someone was using GoDaddy. We did a speed test and they were very not happy. So we kind of migrated it to a Cloudways server. We did an apples to apples comparison speed test. And with any optimization, we went from 30 seconds on a GoDaddy site to 7 seconds on a Cloudways site. Their website never went down. So basically a website will never go down. Well, if you're doing something like this, a website won't go down unless you're changing the A record, right? Obviously, if you change the A record to the new server, you have to wait for DNS. But if you're just simply just testing for speed and see what's better, just migrate it over to a new server. If they give you a nice temp URL, do a speed test and go from there.
Cool. In the comment section, we also got a question from Linwood. He's asking, can you share thoughts about best practices for server management,
Sure.
specifically achieving redundancy without blowing the budget by paying for excess server capacity?
Yeah, I mean, so we definitely had a situation where someone needed to have, like, if their server down or something like that, they need to be able to go in and change that IP address. I mean, what you can do from there is Cloudflare gives that ability to have that failover option. You definitely will need two servers with a static site. I mean, best server practices you want to monitor. For instance, like our server that we have 50 sites on, we're checking it once a week, twice a week, making sure that the RAM usage is not so high, making sure everything is kind of low on processes. I mean, one morning, I think it was like a Monday morning, we got an alert at like 6 o'clock in the morning that all our sites were down. We're like, what's going on here? It turned out that our server was overloaded. So obviously we scaled it up, but we kind of said, well, what's causing this to kind of overload? Because nothing changed. So we went to nitty gritty and found that one site was, just getting a lot of traffic, which caused the overload. We've been with Cloudways for 3 years, I would say at this point. That's the first time that's ever happened. So I mean, we were pretty kind of shocked by that. But again, for the ability to scale up, I mean, redundancy for a website. Again, you guys talk with your client. Maybe they have that ability. Hey, they need that backup. Maybe they don't. Redundancy for a website is great. Don't get me wrong. But that's one thing we really like with Cloudways. Our servers are relatively inexpensive for the process. I mean, I think they're priced accordingly. But again, you can have another server and have a stat, hey, our server's down or whatnot. I haven't, and to be fully transparent, we are looking into how we can have one site mirror the other, and in case of that, we just haven't really dived fully into it yet. But we are definitely working on something where we can say, hey, our server's overloaded. Okay, let's fail over to that server with no differences. But we're definitely looking into that. So Linwood, I hope that answered your question. But yeah, keep comments coming.
Yeah. So we have another question in a comment
Sure.
section from Sahil. He's asking, is it necessary to add Cloudflare Enterprises? Can my website be hacked without it if I have installed security plugins?
So to be fully transparent, we haven't tried the Cloudflare Enterprise that Cloudways offers, but we definitely do use Cloudflare for all of our DNS records. I mean, so again, I can't answer to the Cloudflare Enterprise level, but we definitely do Cloudflare for all our DNS. I mean, a website can be hacked for many reasons, right? Just Cloudflare Enterprise, I don't believe, and Dinesh, maybe you can answer this, doesn't help prevent hacking, right? You want to do best practice. You want to have, non-weak passwords. You want to have that 2FA on the login. You want to make sure everything is updated. If you don't need FTP access, don't use it. Have it turned off. I mean, it's best practices, right? Even the security plugin, a site can get, hacked. I mean, I know back in 2017, we literally just onboarded a client, and I want to say 2 months later, we were updating, getting up to date. They had a custom theme. They were hacked, right? So, and it turns out it was that custom theme because the code wasn't being updated. So again, best practices are always going to be needed. A security plugin isn't the end all be all, because you definitely want to be protected. You definitely want that updates. You want to be up to date. You want to have a security. You want to have a firewall. But again, we haven't tried the Cloudflare Enterprise. It is on our list to try, but we just haven't tried it at this point.
Great. So the next question we have is related to updates. So is there any best process for updating our WordPress website?
Again, you kind of have to figure out, like we're doing. Like I said, we have we have all our management clients on a document, and everything is kind of fed through. We say, hey, and we get alerts if a plugin's vulnerable. We're looking at the vulnerable list that IT comes out every week. We get alerts when plugins are vulnerable. If a plugin is vulnerable, is there an update available? If not, well, can we replace that plugin? I mean, it's best practice, right? So our best practice is, depending on the level and severity of the site, we update a site every Friday. We update a site every 2 weeks. We update a site every monthly. Some sites we do quarterly, but it depends on our best practices is every 2-3 weeks. Again, we're backing up every day. Vulnerable plugins are right away. So we're definitely updating that right away. We do, again, we back up our websites, then we do plugins. Once we make those are good, then we do themes, then we do WordPress.
Great. So, Howard, moving on to our next question that is related
Sure.
to cache. So, is cache important to help a website speed? Are there any good plugins that help with website speed?
Sure.
Can you recommend some of them?
Sure. Caching I think is important. I know that Cloudflare again helps with that. Um, it helps things keep static, so if things aren't changing. However, cache can cause problems. If a site has images and you're making changes and you're not seeing it, you can't figure it out, then you've got to clear cache. It can cause problems. I think in the grand scheme of things, it is great because then it will load the images as it builds that cache. So it will build the images. It will make the site load quicker. Good plugins. There's Breeze from Cloudways. I know we have the Varnish plugin as well, the Object Cache Pro. There's Lightspeed. There's tons. Again, I can't, a good plugin to you might not be a good plugin to me. So you got to do your research, ask the different communities, what's good, and kind of go from there.
Great. So we have a question on a comment section from Mansoor, and he's asking, are there any common mistakes or pitfalls to avoid when optimizing WordPress performance?
Yep, absolutely. So again, kind of goes back to what I've been saying the whole time is, you don't want to make sure your images are optimized. Like if your image that you're uploading is 25,000 pixels by 25,000 pixels, and you're only showing it in a 250 pixel space, well, that's going to kill your website because it's got to kind of minify it, right? So you definitely want to make sure all your images are optimized. You want to make sure you're using good theme that doesn't have a lot of code in the back end. You want to kind of keep the coding to a low. You want to make sure that your server is good. You want to make sure that everything's running smooth. Common mistakes, like I said, it's just making sure everything's optimized, making sure that you're running a tight ship, making sure everything is optimized, making sure everything is good. From a speed point, it's just optimization is key. I know they always say that, make sure everything is updated. We have seen that plugins were neglected for 3 years. We updated and they were saying it's slow. We updated the site with the plugins and the site loaded quick. So it's just basically, making sure everything is up to date, optimized, not using bloated code, not a lot of custom code in there that's going to cause bloat. That's pretty much the simple answer.
That's very interesting, Howard. So we have reached to the end of our session. Before we conclude the session, Howard, would you like to share any closing remarks on any best practices for those who are starting their career with WordPress and looking for the
Sure.
WordPress industry?
Sure. So like I said before, I definitely learned WordPress by doing. I've grown my agency from nothing to where I have people all over the country using me, all over the world, reaching out. Like I said, learn it. I feel like WordPress is definitely a huge community-oriented platform. Like I said, there's tons of Slack groups, there's tons of Facebook groups. There's tons of YouTube videos. I was talking with a colleague last night. He found a cool form plugin that we're going to start looking into. I feel WordPress is great. I know that there's been concerns lately. Oh, do we use this? Do we use that? Is it going away? Is it this? Is it that? Listen, you got to form your own, opinion, right? So you got to you got to learn what you're comfortable with. But reach out to the community people. There might not be a local one. Let's say, there might be one 3 hours away. Doesn't necessarily mean you can't join them, right? Don't feel that you're going to be neglected, right? When I first started using WordPress, I was intimidated, but I just started learning it. I reached out for help. I made connections. I do believe in helping where I can. I've always believed in that. So just learning. This learning, I think, is key. Take the time. It definitely can feel intimidating. It can definitely feel overwhelming, but learn it. To learn it. It's a new tool. You never know where it could lead you. You never know what job opportunity might come up. You never know, you might be able to start a business where you're making recurring money coming in for updating a site once a month. But learn it. That's the best advice. Just learn it. Get involved. Just read. just read what you have to, um, and just go from there.
Great. So, any last coming from your end about this AMA session? Uh, your feedback on this AMA session?
So this is our first AMA. I definitely thought it was awesome. Definitely a little nerve wracking. Don't get me wrong. I feel like in this industry, we've definitely have grown to where I can do these things and not worry about a website going down or focusing on a computer. So and then one thing I do, I think we missed one of the questions in the comments. I want to make sure we address it. Someone asked, how do you define a fast website? When we say the website is slow, is fast, what metrics should we be looking at? So again, it's your opinion, right? If a website, usually I think it's if a website loads with under 2 seconds, people are going to be more apt to kind of go through it. If it's loading, if it takes 10 seconds to load, people might click off or say, hey, it's not loading slow, so we're not going to use them. So you definitely want to kind of see where you can improve. What metrics should you be looking at? Waterfall on GT metrics gives you a really nice breakdown of what's loading quick, what isn't. It's in milliseconds, so you can kind of do the conversion. You want to look at what makes sure people are going to it. You want to have other people test it. You want them to test it in terms of, hey, can you click from this page to this page? Is this vid loading? So you kind of want to look at a website as a whole, but also use the tools that are out there.
Uh, Great. So if you guys like who are uh, seeing us on a live session and who will watch this session later, if you guys have any question related to performance, you guys can outreach me. Uh, Thank you so much for joining us today, Howard, and sharing your
Absolutely.
insights and expertise about WordPress. We appreciate your time. It was a pleasure to have you here with us today. We hope you have a back again soon for another informative session. Uh, Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and have a great day ahead. Thank you. Bye bye.